Hi guys, it's Jonelle. Today we're going to be going over the manifestation, also called the MDR or the Manifestation Determination Review. Um, so, just to kind of give you an overview, MDRs must be held prior to the student's 11th day of cumulative suspension within one school year, or if the nature of the alleged misconduct triggers an administrative decision to move for expulsion, an MDR must be held regardless of the days previously suspended to ensure that due process and procedural safeguards for the student. The primary purpose of the MDR is to prompt the team to inspect the reasons for the student's removal from the current educational setting and to ensure a student is not being suspended as a result of his or her disability or failure of the district to implement the needs and supports outlined in the student's IEP. Okay? So I will also provide you guys a link underneath the video to our handbook that talks about behavior and discipline and has a kind of like not a flow chart, but more of a little matrix about the discipline process and the legal compliance. So if you're interested, go ahead and check that part out. And it is, again, only accessible to those within FUSD. So all the information here, section by section, is actually embedded within the document. So just be sure that like these things that are gray cannot be changed because it's actually pulled from the student information system. All right, so you're going to make sure that you have the date of your, that you're holding the manifestation, who the case manager is. Again, this information will be filled out because we have a fake student. We don't actually have a school ID number, so that's why this area is blank. All right. This information in regards to who the parent is, all of that, this is all should be auto-populated, but please make sure that you are confirming if this is all correct, if there are any changes as you guys are holding the MDR. All right. Is the student an EL, English learner? Yes or no? What their primary language is. Again, anything that's grayed out, you cannot change because it's already embedded. The date of the current IEP. So this date should align with the last annual or triennial IEP. Usually, an MDR is held as an amendment, so the date of the original annual or triennial should be inputted here. If an annual review is being held at the same time that the MDR is, then they can be the same. Okay, and then you have the date of the last. Same concept. It's applied to when the last testing was conducted, and you're going to make sure to have that. If the last triennial and the last annual are the same date, then go ahead and put them. If they happen to all three be together, the annual, the triennial, and the MDR, then all the dates would align. All right. So current educational setting. Here is, in this section, you're going to give information essentially about what the student's schedule looks like. What is the programming that they are part of within special education? So be sure to include any relative, any of the related services that the student may be receiving, speech and language, counseling, OT, PT, anything in here, okay? So an example would be that Sarah Brown is 5 periods of general education and 1 period of resource core support. So another example for any other student could be how many periods of gen ed do they have, how many periods of specialized academic instruction, and if they have any additional supports like speech, OT. Okay, because this really needs to give us a good idea of what their ed setting looks like currently that they're being removed from. The second box, description of behavior / actions of the student resulting in this analysis. So you're going to want to capture the misconduct that's leading to the suspension and or potential expulsion. You're going to list actually all of the suspensions that have occurred within the course of the current school year. So don't go back any further than just this school year. It's not necessary for anything previous, nothing that happened in junior high if we're just talking about high school and what happened during this one school year. Okay. So the example here, on XX date, Sarah was in a physical altercation with another student and broke the stool over the student's head, causing a concussion. The teacher evacuated the classroom to a neighboring teacher's classroom. The front office was called. Upon the principal's arrival, Sarah did not comply with the administrator's directives to release the other student from a headlock and leave the classroom. Sarah had pulled out 2 handfuls of hair from the administrator when he tried to intervene. The student resource officer, or SRO, arrived and Sarah was escorted to the office while screaming and trying to kick and punch anybody who was in her path. Sarah was issued a 5-day suspension, which has now accumulated to 10 days this school year. And her previous suspension on blank blank date involved a physical altercation as well. So we provided what happened this time, what happened previously, and how many days total right here, disciplinary action. Proposed suspension 10 days for the current school year. And we want to write here the date of when the student's this most recent suspension is, okay? And here, in determining whether the student's behavior was a manifestation of his or her disability, the manifestation determination team considered the following in relation to the behavior subject to discipline. And you're going to check all applicable items. So you don't have to check all of them, but just the ones that are applicable. Teacher observations of the student. You're going to want to include observations from the general education teacher, prep teachers, special ed teachers, and or specialists. Include information such as how are they generally compliant? What is their work completion like? Whether or not the student is able to follow classroom routines and rules. What types of relationships do they have with peers or staff? Okay. And student's IEP, this is where you're going to want to describe. You're going to consider the salient portions of the student's IEP and include any information that can provide additional insight or direction for the team as relating to the nature of the misconduct and resulting in the disciplinary actions. So if possible, we want the team to actually come to a consensus as to whether the student is able to distinguish right from wrong. So just keep that in mind. We're really trying to find out whether the student knows right from wrong to be able to get into these, these altercations or whatever they're being suspended or up for expulsion for. Any other relevant information supplied by parents of the student, and we would list them out. Any information could be maybe they have new doctor's information or doctor's diagnosis. Maybe they're on new medication. So anything that the parents provide or the student provides to us, we want to go ahead and list here just because we want to take into consideration everything that's being presented at the table. All right. This can include additional information from the student's history or their previous reports from other specialists or the student's response to interventions. So how did they do in regards to their behavior intervention plan? Was there progress there in regards to their behavior goals that they may have? Okay, so those things you want to list out here as well. So the MDR consists of 2 essential questions. So I'll read them here. The manifestation determination team determined, in relation to the behavior subject to the disciplinary actions, the conduct in question was caused by or had a direct and substantial relationship to the disability. Okay, we're going to mark here either yes or no. And essentially this is, when we're moving forward with this, we as the educators, okay, we are trained in this. We are the ones that know this information. So we are the responsible parties in actually determining whether or not the misconduct leading to the 10+ days of suspension and or recommendation for expulsion had a direct and substantial relationship to the student's identified disability. So we are not the expulsion panel, okay? We are the IEP team charged with the task of ensuring that the student's procedural safeguards as relating to the facets of their disability and leading to his or her current removal from school. So we really need to come to a consensus on this of, do we feel that the reason that they were suspended does it have a direct or substantial relationship to their disability? So we're looking here, although the IEP team has taken parent input into consideration, the district finds that Sarah's behaviors were not caused by or have no direct or substantial relationship to her identified disability of specific learning disability. So she has specific learning disability, and we don't feel that the taking I believe it was a chair or a stool and slamming it over a student's head causing a concussion, and then having somebody in a headlock and then pulling hair out from the SRO, that this was in direct or substantial relationship to the SLD, okay? And there's a second question. The conduct in question was a direct result of a failure to implement the IEP. So you're either going to mark yes or no. Were all parts of the IEP implemented with fidelity? Did the general education teachers know that the student had a behavior intervention plan or a behavior goal? And were they making any of the necessary accommodations built into the IEP? Was the student receiving the correct number of minutes? All of their related services as outlined on the service page? The team must confirm that the misconduct the misconduct either was or was not resultant of the district's failure to implement the IEP. The IEP team members find that Sarah's IEP was implemented with fidelity, and then you're going to actually make sure to want to specify specifics in relation to the questions right here, okay? So these are the two main questions. As we get lower onto the page, it asks about the manifestation determination team decided that the student's behavior was a manifestation of his or her disability. That means that requires a yes on any of the one of the above two items. So if we mark yes on this first question or the second question about implementing the IEP, then it is a manifestation of his or her disability, okay? If that is the case, then we look at the second piece. Discipline proceedings may not occur at this time. So we either need to complete an FBA, a functional behavior assessment, needs to be conducted, and unless it's already conducted, and a behavior plan is to be implemented. Or if they do have a behavior intervention plan that's been developed, the plan will be reviewed and modified as necessary. Okay, so if there is a yes, these are the two options that we have. And it explains that right here. Instead, the team would determine if an FEA is warranted or if a behavior intervention plan needs to be modified based off of the yes for the manifestation, okay? And then we get a little further, and it says, was not a manifestation of his or her disability requires a no. So again, we're going to scroll back up. And if this question had a no, and this question had a no, then it was not a manifestation of his or her disability. So the proceedings with disciplinary, that we can move forward with the disciplinary proceedings, and all conditions have been met. Behavior was not a manifestation of the student's disability, and the student actually understood the impact and the consequences of the behavior, and the student could control their behavior, and services and supports were correct at the time of the incident. Okay, so again, it's just reiterating that no has to be for both of the questions above, and that it's not a resultant of their disability, okay? Then we go into the parent either agrees or disagrees with the team's determination of whether it was a manifestation or was not. So they would mark either they agree or they disagree. And at this point, I think sometimes we get into kind of sticky situation where the parents want to appeal, but we are not, again, we're not the expulsion panel. So appealing this is not something that they have the ability to do. We are just the IEP team that has to discuss and to review the information. So we actually, we're charged with the task of ensuring the students' procedural safeguards. And making sure that, we are following the legal compliance of seeing whether or not they're being suspended or removed from their educational setting because of their disability, or if it's not, okay? And make sure that we are providing a copy of parent rights to them. So at your IEPs, please always make sure that you have a copy of the procedural safeguards. You're going to mark either yes or no, and the date that we're having the meeting. And again, as you scroll further, it's going to be signatures for everybody who had attended the IEP. The top is going to be for the parent or guardian, or the adult student if they are 18, and then everyone else who had attended the MDR. All right. Okay, guys, I will also, again, I'll put at the bottom of the page, I will put, or the bottom of the video, I'll put a link to the discipline/behavior section of our handbook. All right. Thanks.